Why do the smallest things people say or do still manage to get under your skin? You tell yourself it's not worth it. You know better. You promise yourself you'll let it go. Yet your chest tightens, your jaw clenches, your breath gets shallow, and there it is again. Anger, not the explosive kind, the quiet kind that steals your peace before you even notice. This isn't about major betrayals or life-changing disasters. It's the small stuff, the careless tone, the dismissive shrug, the thoughtless comment that lingers longer than it should, the kind of moment that ruins your morning and follows you all day long. You didn't ask for this fight. You weren't looking for conflict, but now your peace is gone, stolen by someone who probably doesn't even realize what they've done. Let's get one thing clear. Their behavior is not your responsibility. Their mood is not your burden. Their ignorance is not your problem. And yet the moment you react, they control you. Not because they're powerful, but because you handed them your power. That changes now. You're here because you're tired of wasting energy on things that don't deserve it. You want control, not over the world, not over other people, but over yourself, over your response. That's strength, that's clarity, that's freedom. The ancient Stoic thinkers believed something radical. They believed no one can hurt you without your permission. Not insults, not disrespect, not inconvenience. Only your reaction gives those things power. Today we're bringing that mindset into your modern life, into traffic, into work, into relationships, into moments where patience is tested and emotions rise. You'll learn how to stay calm even when the world acts foolishly. You'll learn how to respond like a person in command, not someone pulled around by every small trigger. You're not alone. Every disciplined person fights this battle, and if you're tired of losing to noise, this is your moment. If this resonates, hit like, subscribe to Stoic Ocean, and drop a comment about the trigger you struggle with most. Over the next hour, we're going deep into 8 powerful principles. Each one builds on the last. Each one gives you another tool for emotional control. By the end of this video, you won't just understand anger. You'll know how to manage it, how to stay calm under pressure, how to protect your peace no matter what happens around you. This isn't theory. This is practical wisdom, tested by time, proven by experience, used by some of the greatest minds in history. Now it's yours to apply. Let's begin. Recognize the pattern before it controls you. You don't explode because of one comment. You explode because it was the 50th one, and you never notice the buildup. That's the trap most people fall into. You think you're reacting to this moment, when in reality, you've been carrying invisible weight all week long. Silent frustration at work, unspoken tension at home, deadlines, expectations, disappointments you keep brushing aside. You tell yourself it's fine. You tell yourself it's not a big deal, so you swallow it again and again until one small thing pushes you over the edge. Boom, you snap. But here's the truth. The anger didn't come from nowhere. It followed a pattern, and you missed the signs. That's why awareness is your first line of defense. Anger isn't random, it's rehearsed. You practice it every day by letting small things slide without resolving them. And when you finally react, it isn't strength, it's overflow. You weren't in control, you were leaking. And every time you explode at something unworthy, you reinforce the loop. Pressure, silence. More pressure, outburst, guilt. That cycle will keep spinning until you name it, track it, and break it. Picture your mind like a dam. Small cracks form quietly. You don't see them. You ignore them. But pressure builds beneath the surface. Then one day something light touches the wall, a tone, a look, a comment, and the whole thing bursts. It wasn't the trigger, it was the fault line you never checked. So start here. Identify your triggers before they own you. Track your patterns like a strategist. When do you lose patience? Traffic? Meetings? Mornings with your kids? A certain tone from someone close to you? Write it down. Don't trust your memory. You won't remember. Self-awareness isn't passive, it's tactical. It's the difference between reacting and leading yourself. Here's a quick practice. Right now, scan your body. Notice your shoulders, your jaw, your breath. That tension, that's your early warning system. Your body senses pressure before your mind creates excuses. Catch it early. Breathe. Step back. Choose not to react. That pause changes everything. You're not a puppet. You're a builder. And every time you interrupt the pattern, even once, you lay another brick of emotional control. Expect irritation. Prepare for it. Recognize it. And when it shows up, don't flinch. Smile. Because now you're in charge. Awareness is the first battle, but awareness alone isn't enough. Because even when you see it, you can still misunderstand it. That's where we go next. Understand what you're really angry at. It's not the spilled coffee. It's not the slow driver. It's not the tone your coworker used. What ignites your anger is rarely what's in front of you. It's what's already inside you. Anger wears disguises. It shows up with the wrong name tag, pointing fingers at whoever's nearby. But underneath, it's often fear, or shame, or exhaustion, dressed as rage. Think of pressure building inside a boiler. If you never release it, even a light tap can set it off. That's what's happening in your life. Pressure from work, pressure from responsibility, pressure from always having to be strong. You think you're fine. You're not, you're just holding it in until something small lights the fuse. Stop blaming the spark. Fix the fuel. Here's how. Tonight, take 5 minutes. Ask yourself, what made me angry today? What was I really angry about? What can I do differently tomorrow? Write it down. Be honest. Patterns don't lie. And once you see them, you can change them. That's when anger stops being a prison and becomes information, not something that controls you, something that guides you. Stop taking things personally. Most of what hurts you was never meant to. People are reacting to their own stress, their own problems, their own fears, not attacking you. The Stoics called this strength apatheia, not indifference, self-command, the ability to remain steady when others lose control. Imagine a boulder in a rushing river. The water crashes against it all day long, but the rock doesn't flinch, not because it's cold, but because it knows the water isn't personal. That's who you become when you stop making everything about you. Pause, breathe, observe. Ask yourself, is this really about me? Most of the time it isn't. And when you stop reacting to every jab, you start responding with clarity. That's real power. That's Stoic power. Self-control isn't silence. It's discernment. It's knowing which moments deserve your energy and which ones don't. Because not every situation is asking for a response. Some are simply testing whether you'll abandon your calm for a moment of noise. And most people fail right there. They confuse reaction with strength. They think responding fast means responding well. It doesn't. Speed isn't power. Control is. Think about how often your anger comes from feeling rushed. Rushed to reply. Rushed to defend. Rushed to explain yourself. As if silence means losing. as if calm means weakness. But the opposite is true. The person who can pause in the middle of pressure already has the advantage. They see more. They think clearer. They choose better. This is where most people give their power away, not to big events, but to tiny urgencies. A notification, a tone, a look, a moment that feels important but won't matter by tomorrow. Here's a simple shift that changes everything. Before you respond, ask yourself quietly, will this matter in a few days? Will this change my life? Will I even remember this? Most of the time, the answer is no. Your nervous system doesn't know that. It treats inconvenience like a threat. It tightens your chest, speeds your breath, pushes you toward reaction. But you're not your nervous system. You're the one who observes it. And observation creates space. Space creates choice. Choice creates freedom. Every time you pause, even for a second, you weaken the old pattern. You teach your mind that urgency is an authority. That emotion is information, not instruction. This is how discipline forms, not in big heroic moments, but in small, quiet decisions no one else sees. Choosing not to react when it would feel so easy to do so. Choosing calm when chaos invites you in. That's how you build inner strength, brick by brick, moment by moment. And here's something important most people never hear. Calm isn't passive, it's active restraint. It's strength under control. Anyone can explode, anyone can lash out. That takes no skill. But holding your ground without raising your voice, that takes mastery. That's what the Stoics meant by power over oneself. Not suppressing emotion, understanding it, not denying anger, directing it. You don't need to become cold. You don't need to become distant. You just need to stop letting every passing moment decide who you are. Because every reaction is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. React impulsively, and you reinforce a fragile identity. Respond with intention, and you strengthen a stable one. This is where it starts to compound. One calm response leads to another. One pause reaction builds confidence. Not confidence that comes from dominance, but from self-trust. The quiet certainty that no matter what happens around you, you won't lose yourself. That's real security. That's peace that can't be taken. And once you experience that, once you taste what it feels like to stay grounded while others spiral, you won't want to go back. Because you'll realize most of the anger you carried was never necessary. It was just unexamined, unchallenged, left to run on autopilot. Now you see it. Now you can interrupt it. Now you can choose differently. Not perfectly, but consistently. And consistency is what changes you. So the next time something small tries to pull you out of yourself, pause, breathe, observe, and remember. You don't need to win the moment. You need to protect the man you're becoming. That's the real work. And that's where your power lives. They're projecting their internal state onto the world around them. You just happen to be standing there. That's all. Don't take that personally. Don't turn their confusion into your burden. Their frustration doesn't belong to you. Their stress is not your assignment. Your job isn't to fix everyone. It isn't to absorb every mood that passes through the room. Your job is simpler and harder. Maintain your peace. Stay grounded when others wobble. Remain steady when emotions run high. That doesn't mean you're cold. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're wise enough to know what's yours to carry and what isn't. Most men carry far too much. They pick up other people's emotions, other people's stress, other people's drama. They walk around with weight that was never theirs. Then they wonder why they're exhausted, why they're irritated all the time, why peace feels so far away. The answer is uncomfortable, but simple. Stop carrying what isn't yours. That decision alone will save you more energy than anything else you learn today. Your mind has a bad habit. When you're stressed, it exaggerates everything. Small problems feel massive. Minor inconveniences feel personal. That unread message, that delayed reply, that careless tone at dinner. Suddenly, it's not just a moment. It's conflict. It's disrespect. It's war. Your mind starts spinning stories, filling in gaps, feeding emotion, until your body reacts as if danger is right in front of you. But here's the truth. Most people never stop to consider. Not everything deserves your energy, and almost nothing deserves your peace. When pressure builds, your nervous system goes into search mode. It scans for threats, even when there aren't any. So inconvenience feels like insult. Delay feels like disrespect. You go from calm to sharp over something you won't remember by next week. That's a trap. And the mind loves pulling you into it. So give yourself a filter, a simple question that cuts through the noise instantly. Will this matter in 5 days? Not 5 years. Not forever, just 5 days. Because if it won't, it's not worth the spike in blood pressure. Not worth the silence you bring home. Not worth carrying tension into the next conversation. You're not a puppet tugged around by petty moments. You're allowed to choose what deserves your attention. Most people lose hours, sometimes days, replaying moments that don't move their life forward. A missed call, a rude cashier, a sarcastic comment. They let it live rent-free in their head. They carry it into meetings, into dinner, into conversations that had nothing to do with it, all over something that means nothing in the long run. Perspective is a skill, and like any skill, it must be trained. Your mind is a muscle. The more you challenge it, the stronger it becomes. At first, asking the question will feel forced. You'll forget. You'll react first, remember later. That's normal. But keep practicing. Keep asking. Over time, it becomes automatic, second nature. You'll start seeing what truly matters and what doesn't. You'll stop wasting emotional energy on noise. That's how mastery feels. Effortless, quiet, stable. When something actually does matter, you'll feel it, and you'll face it without panic, without rage, calm, grounded, deliberate. That's not passivity, that's power. You're not ignoring problems, you're selecting them, because the man who burns over everything eventually burns out. But the man who knows what to release walks through storms untouched. When your thoughts start racing, pause and zoom out. Picture yourself a week from now. Will this moment still exist? Will it have changed anything? If the answer is no, let it pass. Shift your focus. Protect your peace. And if the answer is yes, then handle it. Not emotionally, intentionally. Your energy is currency. Spend it with purpose, not on trash. So the next time anger whispers, pause, breathe, ask the question, will this matter in 5 days? Make that question your armor. Use it often. Let it guard your attention. That's how control returns. Not forcefully, naturally. Anger often isn't a choice. It's a reflex. 1 second you're fine. The next, your voice rises. Your jaw tightens. Your body reacts before your mind has a say. That's not strength. That's surrender. Feeling anger is human. Letting it drive is optional. Most people never install a gap between trigger and reaction. They fire immediately. Like a faulty machine. Emotion in, action out. No filter, no pause, no control. You can't afford that. Not if you want respect. Not if you want peace. Not if you want to lead yourself. You need space, a moment, a breath. That space is where power lives. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about owning it, then choosing how to act. That's discipline. Not volume, not aggression, control. Imagine your mind like a loaded weapon. Every provocation nudges your hand toward the trigger. The undisciplined man fires. The trained one holds, breathes, sees clearly. That pause isn't weakness, it's restraint. And restraint is rare. It's what separates chaos from command. Most people react first, regret later. Words escape. Damage spreads. Apologies follow. All because they couldn't wait 1 second. One breath. One pause. That pause changes everything. Between control and collapse. Between clarity and chaos. Next time something hits you sideways, a sharp comment, a careless mistake, a delay that derails your plan, stop. Count to 3. Breathe through your nose. Keep your mouth shut. Then decide, respond, or don't. Either way you choose, not the emotion, that's maturity. Not reacting loudly, but calculating quietly. Stoics trained for this. They weren't emotionless. They were unshakable. They understood emotions are data, not commands. Information, not orders. Pausing takes more strength than exploding. Anyone can lose control. Few can hold it. But every time you pause, you sharpen discipline. You reclaim authority over yourself. You stop being dragged by moments. You start directing them. The pause isn't just stopping, it's creating space for wisdom to enter. That's how you stop getting angry at small things. Not by force, by choice, by training, by patience, by becoming the kind of person who no longer loses himself over noise. And here's something most people miss. Control isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to prove anything. It shows up as quiet confidence, as steadiness when others wobble, as restraint when chaos invites you to join in. That kind of control changes how people experience you. They notice you don't react the way they expect. You don't rise to bait. You don't mirror their mood. And that alone shifts the dynamic. Because calm has gravity, people feel it, even if they don't understand it, especially then. This is why true composure is intimidating. Not because it's aggressive, but because it's unpredictable to those who rely on emotional reactions to feel powerful. When you don't give them that, they lose leverage. Not because you fought back, but because you didn't fight at all. That's mastery, and mastery creates distance between stimulus and self. Distance gives you vision. Vision gives you choice. Choice gives you freedom. Think about how many times you've reacted and later thought, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. That regret is proof you already know a better version of yourself exists. One who pauses, one who observes, one who chooses. This practice is how you meet him. Not overnight, not perfectly, but consistently. You won't get it right every time. No one does. But every time you catch yourself before reacting, you weaken the old pattern. And patterns are fragile once exposed. They rely on unconscious repetition. Awareness breaks that spell. Then discipline takes over. And discipline doesn't shout. It whispers. It shows up in moments no one applauds. Moments where you could explode but don't. Where you could defend but stay silent. Where you could react but choose restraint. Those moments stack quietly. And one day, you realize something changed. Not outside, inside. The same situations appear, the same comments, the same delays, but they don't hook you the way they used to. They pass through without sticking, like wind through an open field. That's peace, not the absence of challenge, but the absence of internal war. You stop feeling like life is constantly testing you. Because you're no longer arguing with every test. You respond only when it matters. And silence when it doesn't becomes a strength, a signal, a boundary, a form of leadership. This is how you stop being reactive. Not by numbing yourself, not by pretending you don't care, but by caring selectively, intentionally, with purpose. You choose where your energy goes. You choose what deserves attention. You choose who you become in each moment. That choice is always there, even when emotions rise, especially then. And the more you honor it, the more natural it becomes, until one day you realize anger no longer runs the show. It visits, it informs, then it leaves, and you remain grounded, present, unshaken. That's the work. Quiet, unseen, but powerful. And once you live from that place, you won't trade it for the noise ever again. Because now you know what most people never learn. Peace isn't something you find by chance. It's something you build by choice. And once you build it, you protect it like a fortress. Not with walls, but with standards, with attention, with discipline, with the ability to say no. No to needless conflict, no to petty arguments, no to borrowed emotions, no to conversations that drain you and leave you worse than before. You stop showing up to every fight you're invited to. You stop answering every provocation like it's a command. You let some things go unanswered, not because you're afraid, because you're above it. And here's what happens next. Your life gets quieter, not externally. People will still talk. Traffic will still exist. Deadlines will still press. The world will still be the world. But internally, it gets quieter. An internal quiet is power. It makes you precise. It makes you patient. It makes you dangerous in the best way. Because a calm man can see options a frantic man can't. A calm man can listen without absorbing. A calm man can speak without needing to dominate. A calm man can walk away without needing the last word. That's confidence. Not the loud kind, the grounded kind, the kind that doesn't beg for validation, the kind that doesn't chase respect. It earns it by presence alone. Now let's make it practical. The next time you feel that old surge, that heat rising, that urge to snap, do this. Name it, out loud if you can. This is irritation. This is ego. This is stress. Because naming it shrinks it. Then breathe. One slow inhale, one slow exhale. Give yourself 2 seconds of distance. Then ask, what response would I respect tomorrow? Not what feels good right now. What would I respect tomorrow? That question turns you into a different person. It pulls you out of impulse and into intention. It reminds you that the goal isn't to win the moment. The goal is to win your life. Because moments stack, tiny decisions pile up, and eventually they become your character. They become your reputation. They become your identity. So choose carefully, not perfectly. Carefully, and if you slip, if you react, if you snap, don't spiral. Don't shame yourself. That's another trap. Just return. Return to the practice. Return to the pause. Return to perspective. Return to your standards. Progress isn't smooth, but it is possible. And every day you practice restraint, you become harder to disturb, harder to bait, harder to pull off center. That's the goal, not to feel nothing, to be unshaken, not to avoid stress, to meet it with control, not to live without anger, to live above it. So the next time the world offers you a petty moment, remember, you don't have to buy it. You don't have to carry it. You don't have to become it. You can watch it, smile at it, step past it, and keep moving. Because your peace is worth more than their noise. And you finally know it. You stay sharp, focused, and sane. That's not an accident. There's a reason high performers use humor under pressure. Firefighters, soldiers, doctors, people who can't afford to freeze or fall apart when things get intense. They don't use humor to escape reality. They use it to puncture tension, to clear mental fog, to stay human when everything around them feels insane. These are people who face situations most of us will never experience. Moments where clarity matters, where panic kills effectiveness. And yet they remain composed, they stay focused, they stay useful. Part of that is training, part of it is experience, but part of it is perspective, the ability to see the absurd inside the chaos, to notice the irony instead of drowning in emotion. If they can do that in extreme situations, you can do it in yours. You don't need to crack jokes out loud. The most powerful humor is internal. A quiet smirk, a subtle thought, a calm, "You've got to be kidding me." Not spoken, not weaponized, just noticed. That's not indifference, that's mastery. And let's be clear, this is not sarcasm, not passive aggression, not clever insults wrapped in fake smiles. That's emotional leakage pretending to be wit. What we're talking about is clean detachment, strategic distance, a shift in posture. You're not triggered, you're trained. You don't give energy to foolishness. You acknowledge it, you breathe. Maybe you even smile. Then you move forward. That's how disciplined people operate. They don't take offense at every pebble in the road. They step over it and keep moving. In a world addicted to outrage, restraint becomes rare, and rarity creates power. Humor reminds you not every battle is worth fighting. Not every voice deserves an answer. Sometimes the strongest move is to laugh quietly, shake your head, and continue your mission. That's control. That's emotional strength. So when the world throws you one of those moments that makes you think, "You've got to be kidding me," don't explode. Don't tense up. Smile. Not because it's funny, but because it's small. Because it doesn't own you. Because you refuse to let chaos rent space in your mind. Humor is a tool, a shield, a filter. When you can laugh at absurdity, you remove its power. The situation may stay the same, but your relationship to it changes. You stop being trapped inside it. You step outside it. You observe, and observation returns control. What once felt infuriating starts to feel insignificant, not because you minimized it, but because you outgrew it. That's the quiet victory. That's how humor works. It doesn't solve the problem. It solves your reaction. And often, that's all that's needed. Now understand this. Every reaction you have is training. You're rehearsing the person you're becoming. Every moment where someone says something careless, acts out of ego, or behaves without awareness, you're handed a choice. Fuel the fire or forge control. Most people don't realize how easily they give their power away, not to important forces, but to noise. One careless coworker, one aggressive driver, one loud voice at the dinner table, and suddenly their mood decides your state. That's not strength. That's submission wearing the mask of toughness. We're taught that strength means reacting quickly, pushing back harder, never backing down. But the strongest person in the room doesn't react. They choose. They don't lose control just because someone else did. They don't mirror chaos. They anchor stability. That's the Stoic shift. Stop letting the outside decide the inside. Emotional discipline works like physical training. You don't lift once and stay strong forever. You train, you repeat, you build habits. Every time you explode, you rehearse fragility. Every time you pause, you rehearse strength. Imagine being provoked and choosing silence. Not awkward silence, confident silence. You feel the impulse. You notice it. You don't obey it. That's not weakness. That's authority. It's like stepping out of a storm while everyone else is getting soaked. You become the person who stays grounded when others spiral. Not passive strategic anger can be useful. Blind rage is not. Every reaction either builds your identity or erodes it. So compress. Hold the line. Ask yourself quietly, is this worth my energy? Is this aligned with who I'm becoming? That inner voice gets clearer each time you listen to it. This shows up everywhere. In meetings, in traffic, at home. You either escalate or you stabilize. You either match the noise or you rise above it. Picture this. You walk into your home. Kids are loud. Your partner is tense. Your phone is buzzing. Old you enters already irritated. You raise your voice. You react. You add fuel. Everything gets worse. New you enters calmly. You notice the chaos, but you don't absorb it. You stay steady. You speak slower. You lower the temperature. You become the anchor. That single choice changes the entire room because you're not reacting. You're leading, not from ego, from identity. That's mastery. The most powerful version of you is quiet, focused, unshaken, and it begins with one decision. Respond like the person you want to be remembered as, not the person who cracked under pressure. Every moment of irritation is an invitation, not to explode, but to sharpen yourself. You won't get this right every time. No one does. But you can get better. You can train your reactions. You can choose clarity over chaos. The person who earns peace isn't the one who avoids tension. It's the one who meets it with control. So remember this. You're not just managing emotions, you're building character. Self-control isn't weakness, it's real strength, and it's earned through small actions. Daily awareness, intentional pauses, thoughtful responses. Use every irritation as training. Track your triggers, breathe before you speak. Ask if the reaction matches the identity you want to live. That's the path. That's the work. Every moment is a choice. Every response is a vote. You can be pulled around by every small thing. Or you can remain grounded, responding instead of reacting, building instead of burning. That choice is always yours, every day, every moment. Make it count, make it align. Because life isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about mastering yourself. When you stop trying to control everything and start controlling what you actually can, things begin to settle. Less forcing, more clarity. That's where peace lives. The Stoics understood this long before us. Real power doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from controlling yourself, from choosing your response, from protecting your calm. That's freedom. That's strength. And that's available to you right now. Breathe, trust the process, and remember, the way you respond shapes the person you become. Not perfectly, but progressively, and that's enough. And here's the part most people never realize. Calm compounds, just like chaos does. Every time you choose restraint, you make the next moment easier. Every time you pause, your nervous system learns that it doesn't need to panic, that it doesn't need to brace for impact at every inconvenience. Slowly, your baseline shifts. You're no longer starting the day already tense. You're no longer waiting for something to go wrong. You move through the world with more space inside you, and that space changes everything. You listen better, you speak less, but with more weight. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't deserve an explanation. You stop reacting to noise that isn't aimed at anything meaningful, and something interesting happens. People begin to adjust around you, not because you demand it, but because your presence sets a tone. Calm is contagious when it's genuine. So is discipline. Others might still complain, still vent, still spiral, but you don't get pulled into it anymore. You stand adjacent, not absorbed, engaged but not entangled. That's a rare position, and rare positions carry authority. This is how leadership forms, not through control, not through dominance, but through steadiness, through consistency, through being the person who doesn't lose themselves when pressure rises. You don't need to announce this change. You don't need to correct anyone. You don't need to prove maturity. It shows in your posture, in your timing, in what you ignore, and what you address. You begin to notice that anger shows up less often, and when it does, it's quieter, shorter, less convincing. It tries to pull you, but the grip is weaker, because you've trained yourself to see it for what it is. A signal, not a command. You acknowledge it. You take the information. Then you let it pass, like a wave that reaches the shore and dissolves. No drama, no damage, just movement. This is what it feels like to be internally free, not untouched by life, but unruled by it. You still care, you still engage, you still act when action is required, but you're no longer living at the mercy of every irritation, every delay, every careless word. You've learned the difference between what deserves response and what deserves distance. And that discernment is a form of wisdom. It doesn't come from reading more. It comes from practicing restraint, from choosing peace over being right, from choosing composure over momentary release. And the more you do that, the more natural it becomes. Until one day, you realize you're no longer trying to control your anger. It simply doesn't control you. That's the shift. Quiet, subtle, permanent. And once it's there, you protect it. You don't gamble it on arguments. You don't trade it for validation. You don't sacrifice it to win trivial moments. You understand now what peace actually costs. Attention, discipline, choice, and you're willing to pay that price because you've felt the alternative and you know it's not worth it. So you move forward lighter, clearer, more intentional, not perfect but composed, not emotionless, but steady. And that steadiness becomes your signature. The way people remember you, the way you remember yourself,